Uh,
Look,
cool.
Morgan, don't feel bad, buddy. Shark happens.
So, welcome. Yeah, you're right. We just got to start. Welcome to July 2nd, 2018 Service Catalog meeting. Already in progress. And we have covered the fact that people need to add stuff to the agenda doc for us to talk about. And if you're watching this video, I don't know if you're going to be attending, but if you have an issue that you would like us to look at while we're all together, we would appreciate you putting something into the document.
So, Morgan, you might want to stop tapping. It comes through really loud and clear.
Oh, my bad. Okay, I guess the microphone.
Yeah, Morgan, you only need to host the meeting. You don't have to be the percussion section, too.
Anyway.
Do we have imperative delete on the agenda yet?
Yes, we do. We have that on, actually, and Morgan, I was going to speak up. I took 2 links from your June 18th discussions. I put them into the agenda doc for the face-to-face so people can easily find them and review them before the meeting.
Super duper. That sounds excellent. And yeah, so the quick version of that is there is a document to add comments to if you want to just add comments, and it is a GitHub repo, and you can file issues or PRs or whatever and do GitHub things to it. We already discussed how we addressed the security contact. We added people to the document or the file that has security contacts in it. I was discussing how we've added the blunderbuss prow plugin enabled on our repo such that it will choose people out of the owners file. And the to-do here was to go add yourself to files that you feel you can comment on. We have done a first level round of that, and I feel that that has been very effective in choosing more appropriate people. There are still to-dos for some of it. Remove some more people in it in the top level one, or move around and add more lower level, higher level. Depends on which way you look at the tree. Owners files such that by default we get people who are actually responding and get people to respond more often and start using the prow process. And so yeah, that's the to-do for everybody is go try to add yourself to an owners file. Make sense?
Sounds good.
Okie dokie. I guess it's me again. I just wanted to, the end of the week is I believe the CFP end date for the Shanghai one. The Seattle one is sort of additionally added to it. I think it has its own end date for CFPs, but you can just submit to both, I believe, with the Shanghai submission process. And so I didn't have any specific things here. I just wanted to ask if there was any last minute ideas that somebody wanted to talk about, or if we just wanted to wing it as usual.
Sorry, Morgan, do you mean as relates to CFP submissions or like SIG sessions?
Both, either. I mainly meant, I figure there will be a SIG session and we don't have to discuss that at this moment, but I suppose it was mainly due to, does anybody want to work together on one, and are they already working together on one, and are they already submitting stuff, and probably shouldn't have let it go until now, but I figured we may want to discuss that either way.
Okay. I'm not sure what the deadline is for getting room for SIG sessions, but those don't need to go through the normal CFP process, right, as far as I know.
Right.
But yeah, I think that we should plan on having one if people are going to be there. And by having one, I mean having a SIG deep dive or something like that. One of the SIG sessions.
I was kind of assuming at some point the organizers would reach out to us and say, SIG owners, who wants to do something, but I haven't seen one of those notes come out yet.
I haven't either. For Seattle, I think it's probably a ways away. And I'm not sure when they would do it for Shanghai.
I'm actually going to be surprised if they do it for Shanghai, but maybe I would be surprised. We'll see. Who's going to Shanghai, by the way, or going to try to go to Shanghai?
I'm going to try. I doubt I will be able to.
Yes, that's the problem I think they're going to run into. It's travel budgets and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess to Morgan's question, is there anybody who'd like to collaborate on a session for Shanghai, since that's due this Friday, I believe? I'm not hearing anything.
Cool, we can move on.
All right, Jonathan, I think you're up then.
Okay, so Carolyn and I have been working on adding some more stuff to svcat, and we've had sort of a disagreement on mandatory flags versus arguments. And this is something that there isn't really a right or wrong answer. It's really more of a preference thing. And we just wanted to bring it up to the group. I don't think Carolyn's here today, but just to see if people have an opinion or if they don't care. So specifically, currently, the way svcat works is we're trying to keep to a minimum of mandatory arguments, and additional information are supplied via flags that must be thrown. For instance, in provision, you always have to provide it the name of the instance you're creating. However, you also always have to provide it at least a class and a plan, which are specified with additional flags, like I wrote in the first example there. And then on top of that, there are some other flags like secrets, etc., that can be thrown. The alternative is having all of the information that must be provided always as simple arguments, and then have additional optional information provided via flags. Does anybody care about this?
I always find it a little odd to use flags for required arguments. I prefer, I guess, your second example there. Like I said, it's a personal preference. To me, dash things, meaning option or flags like that, are meant to be for optional things. If you need something required, then it should not require a flag, in my opinion. But I know that's not necessarily the way all of Kubernetes works, unfortunately.
So I guess the thing that I would think of in favor of arguments for some things that are required would be like, I'm looking at this example, and since we have so many different ways of identifying things, like for provision, it seems like it might be hard to figure out. Sorry, I got distracted. It might be hard to figure out exactly what the actual piece of information you're passing in the case of like services and plans might be.
Okay.
And also, the plan is optional if there's only one plan.
Well, if it's optional, then it needs a dash. I agree.
So, Jonathan, in like your example in the agenda, the second one, service cat provision foobar, like is ABC the Kubernetes name? Is it the human readable name? Which coordinate?
These are all human readable names.
Okay. So if you want to pass like an external ID instead, what would that look like in the second example?
I don't believe svcat currently supports external IDs at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we only deal with human readable names for the moment.
That makes sense. Okay, so maybe that's not a major issue. Like it it doesn't make a whole lot of sense now that I'm thinking about it to like want to use svcat and then you're like, I want to use it with external ID. Kind of opposite directions to pull in. Yeah, that's what comes to mind for me.
I'm not certain. I'm sorry?
Are we doing the speaker queue thing, or are we just shouting stuff out?
Looks like a mix of both. Also, they're not timestamps, so I'm not really certain. Did you hand for this or something?
Yeah, I'll go then. I guess mostly Doug's opinion on optional stuff, but with the caveat of Paul's, we have multiple ways to refer to things, and so I don't know if we need an escape hatch on being specific, or if that just means everything needs to be a flag. So. Or if you take, if it's not there and it's an optional positional argument, then we have to check for flags. I don't know what's difficult to do in the CLI. The last point I want to make is whether or not this is intended sort of for scripting, even though we have a, client go, this client, that client support in other languages. Do we expect people to try to script around this? And are we being consistent enough for that to be possible? And, the moment we change something, are we going to break a bunch of people's scripts versus, with that support? So last thought there. Done.
I don't know. We haven't really discussed whether or not we intend svcat to be for scripting purposes. In fact, we seem, in my experience, to have been erring in the opposite direction, that providing it mostly for something that's easy for a person to physically use.
That matches with my previous discussions, yes.
Doug?
Yeah, actually, I would agree with both. I would definitely want it to be for scripting, because I look at scripting as just bash filing what a user would type. And so when I look at something like this, I think, yes, how do you make it as easy as possible for an end user? And that, to me, is something closer to your second option than the first one, because I want to make the user get their job done as quickly as possible with as little typing as possible. And that's why I tend to favor the no flag thing for required parameters. But it's all subjective.
Well, the argument for the other option, for the first option, is that it's easier to understand what exactly each of these things I'm typing in as, whereas if someone were to come and look and say, svcat provision foobar ABC123, they're like, I don't know what any of those things are. Is that the name? Is it the class name? Is it the plan?
Yeah, but I think that argument really only holds when you have like 6 different parameters, right? And I don't think that's really what we're talking about here, right? Because with that argument, you could sit there and say, well, why doesn't foobar have a dash in front, right? So where do you draw the line? Because we don't require a dash for every single parameter, just some.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I like, I love consistency. And so the consistent rule of required parameters don't require a dash, optional parameters do require a dash, works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, that kind of falls apart in the multiply optional required parameters, though.
Say that again?
In the manner of, you can refer to something 3 different ways. Name, or this, or UID, or external ID, or blah, 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 blah. So.
Yeah, I thought we got rid of that, though. I thought we were just doing human readable names.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think any commands in svcat currently support multiple ways to refer to the same thing.
Okay. There you go. Problem solved.
You can pass in UUID. There's a UUID flag, I thought.
For which commands?
Which UUID?
Provision and bind, I do not support that.
I think get does. You can get things by UUID.
When you do that, is it behind a flag, or do you just put the human readable name or the UID and it figures out which one it is?
I think if I remember right, it was a Boolean that interpreted what you gave it as the name as a UUID instead.
Interesting. That would still fall into that same pattern, though, better or worse, where you don't have a required name, and then the Boolean flag tells you how to interpret that required field. So.
Okay, I'll have to investigate that, and I will endeavor, regardless of what we decide upon, to make behavior consistent.
Super duper.
Okay, thanks.
Morgan, you're up.
Okay, so reviews in general, multiple points here. I feel like as a project, we're somewhat bogged down by people not doing reviews. And I don't know what the answer is, if it's figure out the owner's files or, remove people from them or whatnot. But I don't get the feeling that people start their day by opening up service catalog polls and reviewing them. And so I don't know, again, I don't know what the solution here is, but I feel like we're sort of slowing down as a project and people are not doing what they need to be doing. So here's a list of stuff to go review.
I think your action right now is probably probably the best first step, is to remind them that.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be required to raise this once a week. Oh, look, here's all the things that we're not doing.
No, I agree. You're right. But before we take something drastic, I like the idea of at least let's remind people.
Yeah, I think that that I know that a number of different vendors that work on this project have been working towards their own goals, like in terms of their own internal deliverables around their broker implementations. So that's probably a factor that's been present over the last couple months. I agree, it should not be something that we have to do, but it can be an easy way to prod people. I see, Morgan, you've raised your hand, so I'll give it to you.
Okay, well, my opinion here is I really don't care what various vendors are doing with Service Catalog that is causing them to not be responsive. If we're going, the project should not hinge on people being, several people being away for a month or a week or whatever. Things shouldn't come to a standstill if we are, believing in the project. So I'm not sympathetic to that particular reasoning there.
All right, my hand's up. I don't think we have a whole lot of control over that, even though I understand your sentiment, Morgan, and I don't necessarily disagree. I don't think we can do anything necessarily to fix that quite that easily. So what I'd like to suggest is that since this is at the end of the agenda and we have 30 minutes left, I'd like to ask that, Morgan, since you took the time to pull out these guys, I think, what is there, 6 or 5 in there? Can you identify which ones you think might be relatively small and we can force people to right now review them since we have 30 extra minutes? I know it's not great to review things on a call like this, but I like the idea of a forcing function, at least for the easy ones. Like, for example, I think the first one's relatively straightforward.
Sure. Most of them should be relatively small, which is why I'm surprised they're taking a while. This is mainly fixing tests. The core of the thing is this. This is the actual code change.
Can you make the font just a slightly bigger? Thank you.
Whoa. That might be too big. This is the core of the code change. And in the commit, I say, I don't know, my go import thing wanted to rearrange everything, so I just committed it.
So just to be clear, the net of this one is the cluster ID is being sent now for the org ID, and the space ID is the namespace GUID. Is that correct?
Yeah, the namespace good was always that. We weren't testing that in the test. We weren't sending either of them. We weren't sending, and so I fixed everything, basically. I filed an issue and then I fixed the issue. What I would like to, this goes into another thing. If we're going to continue to use this library, we need to get people to respond on it, or we need to get permission to it from the people on this project.
Morgan, that your poll on that one must have slipped by me. I'm sorry about that. So on that subject, I really need to rehome those things. I am happy to donate them to Kubernetes SIGs, but I would say effectively, like at least the Open Service Broker client at this point, like especially, I'd be happy to rehome it.
Is there any reason that we just don't? Is there any reason we just don't pull it into our repo here? It seems like a natural fit for it.
There are other people that are using it outside of this project.
I don't mind keeping it separate. We need to either add more of us to that repository or, again, get more reviews on it. That's the only.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, let me go and look at that now. If you're ever trying to make a poll to a repo that is under my user ID, just feel free to shoot me an email. I am sorry that slipped by me, and I'll review it now, okay?
Sure.
So can we get another LGTM on that first one right now? You only need one more.
You feel free to take the time to review it. Should we move on? This was to fix a flake. I started reviewing this, and it looks like everything is deflaked. I need to take another pass at it myself. I'll do that either today or tomorrow. But Carolyn is out, so she can't take another pass at it this week. So just please look. This is all stuff caught by GoVet that I'm not sure how it's getting past the internal vet, but it is, and I just fixed it. So it's vet stuff.
So hold on a sec. You scroll down a little to line 679 on that one. That one right there.
Okay. Yes. This was when this pretty message thing was implemented. We dropped an argument.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. For some reason, I thought you switched status and condition type. I didn't realize it was just an insert. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, it's just insert the condition type. This is how it's done in the instance code, and so I went back and I looked through the history, and we dropped a bunch of arguments. This was just one extra argument that was dropped, and Vet was saying, "Oh, look, you've got 3 formatting arguments, but you've only got 2 args." So I put it back, and I looked at the update service instance function, and it had this in it, and
yep,
this is what I think it should be. This is more insidious in that this is a pointer, and so it doesn't really do much help to print out a pointer. But also, if you try to print out a pointer and it's nil, it blows things up. So I'm willing to change this if somebody has a better idea, but this was the easiest.
I like your change. I'm just surprised that it would blow up as opposed to just print out the word no.
It will if we leave it as a pointer, but I'm trying to dereference it to actually print the thing.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Do we actually want to print like 0x ABC?
No, I get it. No, you're right.
Yeah,
I missed that. Got it.
Yeah, so I can't do much about it. I thought I changed more than that, but I guess not. So that's that, and twice.
Any questions on that? Any reason people can't LGTM that one right now? If you want to stop the recording, you can. I don't really care.
I don't see either way. YouTube spaces. YouTube space. Do we actually want to stop it? I don't